Thank you for joining me today on the Who God Says podcast. I am your host and Kingdom Ambassador, Ty Chandra. Hi, hi, hi. Today we have a special guest. Oh my God, I am so excited. He is an executive director and corporate trainer. He's the author of Life on Purpose, Mr. Michael Acker. How are you?
Hey, doing so well. So good to be here with you and just looking to forward to just give some stories, adding value to the people who are listening and tuning in.
Yes, I love it. Oh my God, you have a story that needs to be put into a couple of movies. Like, I was reading and I was like, oh my God, I could just see it in pictures. I'm like, oh, you should do a movie or a few movies. I was like, oh, I gotta know.
So much of it is the story I inherited, which is part of my story. So we often think about our lives just in terms of what happens to us, but our life
Hmm.
is those who come before us and those who come after us, and we have to think a bigger view of our life. And so, there are some movie elements to it. Those are not mostly my elements, but but there are.
Oh my God. I want to just dive right in because the first thing I saw was about your parents, right? So your
Right,
parents went from drug smugglers to witchcraft to followers of Jesus. So,
right.
first of all, how did you know that your parents were drug smugglers? How old were you?
Yeah, so it wasn't until later. So it was my dad who was a drug smuggler and my mom was a witch. And so they met at a party back in the hippie days. My mom and my dad hooked up and then got together for a while. My dad was the epitome of a 1960s drug smuggler with marijuana and go learned how to fly a plane, learned how to speak Spanish so he could go down to Mexico, cut out the middleman, and come back up. And then he was dealing at a party, and my mom was buying at a party, and then that's how they met. At that, she was actually running away from somebody who wanted to kill her, and
Wow.
so she needed to be with somebody who would protect her in her mind. So she kind of lobbed out a prayer to the universe about having someone to protect her and having a person who slept with a gun under the pillow. Of course, that was my dad. They got together and they had some high flying experiences that I did not find out until I was 15. So when I was 15, my dad at this point in time was fully devoted follower of Christ, and so was my mom. And so I was starting to make some slight bad decisions, not
Mm.
huge, nothing major, and
Mhm.
really not too rebellious. But my dad at that point in time had really clinched down a lot of the rules. And so if I'd arrived 3 minutes late, I'd get grounded for 3 months. And I didn't understand that. I was like, well, it's just so ridiculous. And my mom sat me down and said, I want you to understand where your dad's coming from. And
Mm.
ultimately told me the story and said, your dad had no rules on his life and he felt unloved because there were no rules, there was no discipline. The Bible says that God disciplines those that he loves. And he
Yeah.
had no discipline in his life and he felt unloved. And so for me and my sister, it was let's put some rules, let's have some discipline in their lives. And it was a way for him showing love for for us. So it wasn't until I was 15 that I learned the dad part. And I think my mouth was
Okay.
literally open the whole time. My mama had heard bits and pieces, but she told me more. I was like, oh, okay, that
Mm.
makes sense. That makes a little bit more sense.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, my mouth was down on the floor too. Like, oh my God.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've since then talked about it with my dad, and he still won't talk too much about it. He wrote a series of novels,
Ooh.
and when I read the novels, I was like, this is actually the story of my dad fictionalized. And so
Mm.
his novels are called Pirates, Scoundrels, and Saints. And he talks a lot about that, and pretty much all of the different characters are my dad. Now, a lot of the stuff didn't happen, like he wasn't actually into piracy, but a lot of the stories of navigating the Caribbean during a hurricane, that
Mm-hmm.
happened to my dad.
Oh wow. I have to go look those up. Pirates, scoundrels, and saints. Ooh. I have to look that up. Yes. I like reading. I like the pictures just come alive in my head. So that's how I read. That's how I read the Bible too. So it helps me. I know a lot of people say they fall asleep when they read the Bible, but I see the words in pictures, so it helps. Oh my God. Whew, okay. So you guys went, well, your family went from drug smuggling to devoted followers of Jesus. How did the smuggling of Bibles into China come about? How did that happen?
Yeah, so it's so interesting. Like my dad's in this whole world, right? And then my mom's in this whole world. Someone told her to meditate on the blood of Jesus, and that if she
Mhm.
meditated on the blood of Jesus, like she meditated on other things, principles of Buddhism and Hinduism and such, she would feel power. And so she
Mhm.
went in and she meditated on the blood of Jesus, and she said, I always felt power when I meditated. But when I meditated on the blood of Jesus, the power that coursed through me was unlike anything else, and everything else I meditated on was a false imitation of that. So
Mm.
whoever this Jesus is and whatever his blood means, that's the real deal.
Wow.
So that's my mom's conversion moment. She's like, I'm in on this Jesus person, whoever he is. My
Mhm.
dad needed some rescuing from some troubles he got himself into. And so he kind of lobbed it out to the universe and said, God, if you're real and you will save me from this, I'll serve you 100%. God
Mm.
did that and spoke to him out loud and said, I'm Jesus, I'm your friend. And I've rescued him from the situation. They were in Kona, Hawaii. In Kona, Hawaii, they found out about YWAM. They signed up for YWAM, Youth with a Mission, 3 months of discipleship training. And then we stayed there for 3 months. And then we did the YWAM DTS mission part of it. So we went over to Asia. I was about 4 or 5 at this time. And we
Mhm.
went to China, Hong Kong, Korea, Taiwan, Philippines, and Japan. And we did a mission experience over there, mission trip over there for 3 months. While we were there, we went to China and we smuggled Bibles in. And I mean, this is 1985, so there's not a lot of there wasn't a lot of leniency in communism
Oh
towards
no.
Bibles, and I mean, still it's really restricted. But the church was all underground, and we brought Bibles in and we put it under the clothes and under the kids' suitcase clothes and smuggled it in. My whole family, besides my parents, were very upset about this. But by this point in time, my parents had dove so far in, and my
Yeah.
dad said to me later, he said, you know, I smuggled so many illegal things and never got caught. And now I'm smuggling something that shouldn't be illegal. And so I just figured that God had my back
Yeah.
and I wasn't worried at all. So we went in and smuggled Bibles in and we are handing out the word of God to people all over China.
That is amazing. I like how your dad was looking at it. Hey, I smuggled all kind of things. I didn't get caught, but God got my back. Oh my God. That is amazing. It's amazing.
Hi everyone! Join the Kingdom Fanatics community. Get exclusive content, green room access with our guests, and more. Visit our website at whogodsays.com. Like and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate your love and support. To find all information on joining our community, being a guest on the show, donating on our PayPal donation page, and more, visit us at whogodsays.com. Now back to the show.
Because he took his experience and he turned all the way around and went 100% into it. And a lot of times people say, well, I asked God this and I asked God that, and he didn't answer me. But I think that in his sincerity, that God knows that he said it, he was serious about it. He knew that that was a person that was going to go all the way in. If he said he was going all the way in, he was going all the way in. I love it. Oh my God. Oh my God. So when you were growing up, um, and you, I'm pretty sure you guys talked about the smuggling Bibles into China and everything. And you were little, you were like 4 or 5, you said.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so when you
Well,
started
I
to
was
realize,
there. I mean, all of the Bibles were in my suitcase and my sister's suitcase under clothes. So I was there.
but when you got a little bit older, you started to realize, like, oh my God, I was actually doing this, or I was a part of this, and you guys put it in my suitcase. Like, what were you feeling? What came to mind when you thought about that? When you thought about like the danger that could, the things that were going on.
Yeah, I don't know when I realized the craziness of that moment. I mean, it probably may have been not even until I was an adult. And I did ask my aunt, and she was like, "Oh yeah, we were furious." And then my dad that's when he told me about hey, I smuggled other things in. But at the same time, by then it wasn't a huge issue in my life because I'd already watched my parents do a whole bunch of other crazy things. For
Mm,
example, we were doing soup kitchens with two little kids on the streets of Seattle. We were handing out tracts in the streets of Seattle, and I mean, that was not a super dangerous, but it wasn't a super safe environment
right.
either. And we were doing all other kinds of things. My sister went to Haiti with my dad when I don't know when she was 8 years old, and then my dad came home. He ended up after the YWAM trip, came back, went into law eventually,
Mm,
and then was working as a lawyer in outside of the city of Seattle, in like a small little Paulsville area, and 2,000 people at the time lived there. I think there's like 12,000 now, so it's still super small. But we were in this small little conservative area. It was just a good place for kids to grow up. My dad comes home from law office one day and says, "I quit my job. We're moving to Mexico." So then we went down to Mexico and worked among the poor and the disenfranchised in the outskirts of Mazatlan, Mexico. So once again, we're looking at like, I mean, by this point in time, it's getting like, yeah, this is just what we do. And, my mom, all 5'1.5" of her, she would go out into the dangerous neighborhoods by herself in the daytime and just walk around and find people to help and such. And so it wasn't that big of a deal once I found out. By the time I did find out and put it all together, I personally had been part of some some more dangerous stories, like got lost in the desert when I was 13 years old, going from town to town on a mission trip experience, and they went ahead of me, and my bike broke down, so I kind of got lost and ended up taking a wrong turn and such. So I had that experience, and I had some other experiences there. When I was 17 years old, I went to Europe by myself. So
wow.
by the time I finally realized, like, oh, that was crazy, it was like, well, I guess that's kind of on par for what we've done.
Oh my God. Hey, I quit my job. Let's move to Mexico. Wow. Wow. Woo. You know what I can say? That your parents understood what obedience was to the fullest. Like so many people, we know what we're supposed to do, and we get so nervous, and it's like, ooh, I could not imagine coming home from my job as a lawyer. I know this is steady income. I know it's providing for my family. I don't have to worry about anything. And saying, hey, quit my job. We're going to move to Mexico. Whoa.
Yeah,
I mean, given the experiences he's had, I know he was probably like, yeah, we're okay. But for the average person who don't have those type of experiences, that is where your obedience come into question. Like, are you really going? When you say I trust God, do you really trust Him?
right.
Ooh, it's so scary.
So much of life is built on previous experiences. Nowadays I'm the executive director of an organization called Go on the Mission, and
Yeah.
so ultimately we're working with kids in 4 different countries. We're working doing sponsorship trips, and I'll work in the United States part of it, and then I'll go visit from our partners from time to time. But when you go visit them and you see them, I mean, they're living by faith. They're living by the sense of expectancy. And part of my role as executive director is to actually help people see what I kind of grew up in.
Yeah.
And then what I kind of got for a while, I went into the corporate world and kind of got away from everything else that I'm talking about and some of these experiences. So I understand what it's like to be comfortable. I understand what it's
Mhm.
like to just have a good life. And yeah, you work hard. Yeah, waiting for that and saving up for that and spending that. And you have those fears and those dreams and those aspirations and those excitements and those anticipations. So I understand what it's like to live in that culture in different places in the United States, but then also to come back and go, perhaps God has called us not only to live a great life here and to enjoy our life, and I believe those are two purposes He has for us, but also to do something so much bigger. And not everybody's going to smuggle Bibles into China.
Right.
Not everybody's going to be that person who's hands-on with those kids in one of the world's poorest places in Burkina Faso. And not everyone is going to do that. But we can pray for them.
Yes.
We can support them. We can sponsor a child. We can go visit them. We can raise funds for a school. There's so much we could do.
Yeah.
Even without being the person who's smuggling the Bibles. Someone had to buy those Bibles. Someone had to get the Bibles to us. Then we brought them, and then people there. So it's so amazing after looking at all of the different things that I've been through is to see a little bit of the larger picture. And that's even what I get to do as executive director of Go On Mission, is to help people see the larger picture and to show them, hey, you can be a part of this picture even without having to do something crazy out there.
Right. That's amazing. Yeah, we all have a part to play. Many are the members of the body, but one body. We all have a function. That's awesome.
Yeah.
In your corporate life, did you still hold tight to your faith, like you applied it to, your job and your career in the corporate industry, or did you feel like you took like a step back from it?
Yeah. So when I first went in, I kind of got recruited, and somebody asked me one time, like, where do you see God doing something amazing in your corporate experience? And I mean, really how I got hired was amazing. So when I talked to the recruiter, so I got recruited from the guy who was looking for someone. He had attended my church when I was a pastor in that area. I'd moved away. We'd stayed in contact. We're at a barbecue. I said, man, I'm thinking about doing something different after 18 years of ministry. He said, I'd hire you in a heartbeat. I said, what do you do? And he said, veterinary medical sales. I said, I didn't even think that was a thing. So apparently major Fortune 500 company, talked to the recruiter about it. She gets off the phone. She says he doesn't have any experience, any education, but he's the best candidate we have. And I got hired. It was just absolutely amazing that I went from no experience in kind of an area where you're constantly struggling as a pastor. Often a lot of pastors, the pay was so low when I was pastor. And now I get hired and it's instantly higher. So did I keep my faith? Did I incorporate my faith? The initial was kind of a honeymoon season, but then I started getting into it, and it was travel, and people were drinking so much. And it was just crazy to see the amount of drinking that was going on in the industry. And I was looking at it going, am I part of this? What am I doing? And I've never been like that before. And now everybody's drinking, and it's just absolutely. And so there was this huge, like probably 3 months of crisis of identity, crisis of mission. Yeah. I wrote a book called Life on Purpose. It's about finding your mission statement. I had a mission statement for when I was a pastor. Now, how do I bring that mission statement over here to this world that I'm in? And so there was a moment of 3 months of like, who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? And without what I've always been doing, without the environment I've always been in.
Right.
What do I do? So, and it took me about 3 months of off and on and some struggles and some kind of those moments where you wonder what you're doing to realign and say, okay, that was my mission, and I knew how it was part of my pastoral world. How can I recode that for my now corporate role? And was able to do that. And then the pandemic hit. So right when I'm getting comfortable, right when I'm actually, okay, I'm in a good spot, serving at the church again, in a good spot, my spirits are up. I've re-identified COVID happened. COVID happened to the world. So I wasn't the only one who was thrown off. And then all of a sudden I'm not doing that job for a while because, hey, so I started doing some other stuff. I wrote a book on public speaking. It took off. I think we're at 50,000 copies for that book or something now.
Wow.
So it took off, sold a ton of copies. And now I start doing corporate training outside of sales, and I'm going. And I remember one point in time, I made more money than I'd ever made in my life. And I'm traveling all the time, staying at nice places, renting nice cars, and going, once again, wait a minute, who am I? What am I about? What does it mean to be me here? And once again, I had to take that mission statement, that guiding principle, and retool it yet again and go, all right, this is what it looks like. And finally, I came to a spot of peace there. And like anybody, anywhere, I want some ups and downs, but ultimately came to a really good spot there, really comfortable, knowing where I'm at. And then I thought to myself, you know what would be amazing? I don't want to go back to pastoral ministry. I did it, love it, respect people who do it. But I also believe that God sometimes calls you back to do something that you loved, but often he calls you forward to something new.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing a new thing instead of chasing the old thing that he did one point in time. And so looking at it going, okay, God, where can I take these experiences of being a pastor and being a corporate trainer and building a business and sales and nurturing sequences and all these different things that I've learned? And where can I take that and use it for your kingdom? So I threw out a prayer, and it wasn't even an official prayer. It was kind of like, you know what would be amazing? It would be amazing if to do something like becoming the executive director at Go On the Mission. Now, there was already an executive director. That's why I didn't say it'd be amazing to do it for Go On the Mission. I said it'd be great to do something like Go On the Mission. And so I throw it out there, and I'm kind of, glancing around at some other nonprofits, and I'm kind of thinking about things and still just doing my corporate training, traveling here to speak here and staying involved in the church and just at a good spot. And then all of a sudden, one of the board members calls and said, hey, our executive director just retired.
Wow.
Would you consider applying? He said, we have 20 other great candidates. Would you consider being another of them? And so I said, great, let's do it. So I went through the process, and then 3 months later, they offered me the position. So it's absolutely amazing. So now I've seen it. Okay, I've seen it in the pastoral world. I've seen it in the strict, large, mega corporate world, a company that's literally global, massive. I've done it in the entrepreneurial business, worked for Adobe, worked for Microsoft, worked for some of these companies, and I still do some of that. And now as executive director, I'm able to combine a lot of that. And ultimately, it's really cool because instead of just building the bottom line of a company, which is nothing against that, but instead of just building the bottom line of the company or just paying for the church to go forward, which again, nothing against that. We are tithers. Now we are part of doing something that pulls together the youth. And now all of the work that we do, the business that we're in, is equipping kids to break the cycle of poverty. So it's really cool to see how all this has come together, and even my experiences as a child.
Yeah. Oh my God, that is amazing. I like how God continues to show up and you grasp that and you understand that every level, let's call them levels, every level that you went to, there was some tug of war there. There was some questioning there. But I think every time you grow, there is questioning, like a test. There's testing, and you have to pass that test. There is questioning. You're going to want to figure things out. But I love how God showed up and you were able to understand and see that God was showing up for you in every level, all these different industries and different places in your life that you and God tied in together. That is amazing because a lot of times people will miss that. They'll just, in their own selves say, well, I just got this job and now it's COVID. I guess I just got to go collect unemployment and sit on the couch and wait for the world to open back up. Because I heard a lot of people saying that. I got to wait for the world to open back up. But we do struggle, and there is a tug of war because our flesh always wants to fight the spirit. We always think we have it under control or we can handle it. And if we can't handle it, we got to figure out how to handle it. So I am so grateful that you were able to see, hey, let me take a step back. I know this is something that I'm going through. This is something I might not understand. What is that mission statement? How do I apply it to now? That's awesome. Because when you have a strong and firm foundation, no matter what you're going through, you can always look back and say, hey, let me take this. How do I apply that to what's going on now? And that's only when you have a firm faith. Because no matter what you do, like you said, they were drinking and everything, and you went through an identity crisis, but you were always able to step back and say, hey, let me get back to this mission state. Let me get back to the heart of it. Let me get back to the spirit of it and see how do I apply that to every part or every level that I'm going through in life. I applaud you. I am so grateful because now you're here sharing with us. Yay.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, the mission statement, it's interesting. The organization that I now lead is called Go On the Mission. And it's really this bigger overarching mission of God in the world, to seek and save the lost, to go into all the world. And the thing that really kept me through all these years was a mission statement. And so the mission is ultimately, what do you do? And it describes the actions that you take. And so, I wrote my mission statement. I wrote it here, talk about it on page 90. It says, this is the mission statement I wrote. I reach out to ensure people feel included. I teach people how to help them know their value. I train people to realize their potential. I release people to go beyond me instead of my shoulders. I repeat this process with the people around me. I lead my family to laugh a lot, thank God for everything, and follow Jesus. And when I fall or fail, by God's grace, I get up again. Now, when you look at the first version of this when I was a pastor, it was just very Christianese, and it was very much insider language. So one of the things that I did when I went into the corporate world was take the mission that I have and go, how do I do this even if I'm doing something else? And so I reach out to ensure people feel included. And that might be in the sales sense. That might be as a corporate trainer. That might be I'm speaking at an event and looking over, and out of the 500 people who are there at the event, I see one person off to the side who no one's talking to. I want to make sure that person feels included. And I teach people to help them know their value. Now, ultimately, that's something I do as a follower of Christ. But if you look at my first book, I talk about that in my first book and my other books. And so ultimately, there's so much that we can define, even if we see it just like in the context of the church, this is who I am. Well, how can you be that same person out there?
Yes.
And even as a soccer dad, how can I do some of the stuff? How can I help kids realize their potential? And so it's been a driving part of my life, and it's been so instrumental. And at my best moments, I've been very honed in on what I do and who I am.
Yes. I love that. I love that. I love how you incorporated not only as a pastor, not only in the corporate world, but also in your personal life with your kids and your family. I love how that's incorporated as a whole. See, the thing that you pointed out was that people act one way when they're in one position, but let's say as a pastor. But when you go home and you're a husband, those two are not connecting. When you go home and you're a father, those two are not connecting. Or when you go and hang out at a football game and you're a friend, those two, that's not connecting. People are, let's say, putting themselves in these different categorizations, those different categories of, and this is how I should act as this pastor. This is the list of the things that I should do as this husband. They're not connecting it. And I love how you said it. I need to act the same way as a pastor, as a husband, as a friend, as an employee. If we can just try to do that, oh my God, we would be so much better off. We don't have to put up a facade and say, this is the way you act because you're at church. No, if you are a follower of Christ, Christ said to treat others as you treat yourself. So why would you not do that? Love God above us first and foremost, but treat others as you would treat yourself. Why would you not do that? That is like one of the firm things that I stipulate in my household. I'm a single mom of 4. We treat everyone as we want to be treated because everybody has a bad day. But if you get offensive and just getting into your own feelings and your own attitude, that's where things get taken out of proportion. But if we treat everyone the way we want to be treated, we won't have to worry about putting ourselves in a certain box because of the environment that we're in. We will always be ourselves, and we will always show the love of Christ everywhere we go. And in everything that we do, we will bear fruit. And I think that's why a lot of people are not bearing good fruit.
Yeah.
Starting and growing a business while dealing with your finances can be overwhelming and stressful. Emerald Services provides packages tailored to your business needs to help you mitigate taxes, stay compliant, plan for your future, and save money so you can focus on being the creative, influential visionary that delivers your dreams to the world. Because what you focus on is what will multiply. Schedule your discovery call today To find out ways Emerald Services can benefit your life plan and your business plan, visit emeraldserve.com or call 504-603-6059.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I felt it. I had to say it.
No, you're good. That's good.
Okay. If you were to look back on your life, what do you think would be like the number one lesson that you learned if you were looking back and say, hey, if there was something that was a running theme or something that I can pass on to another person and say, this is what I learned throughout my life, what would it be?
So one of the running themes I have in my life is that who you are is not who you have to be. Where you start is not where you have to end. Where you are is not where you have to stay. And so you could right now be someone who's timid and you can be bold. You could be someone who has a speech impediment like I had and become a paid public speaker. You can be someone who is a drug smuggler or a witch and have a life change. And the decisions that you make right now change your destiny and the destiny of those around you. And so who you are is not where you have to stay. And so I'm just even encouraging you as you're listening to Taishandra's show here. Let me just encourage you that who you are right now, think about who that is. Mm-hmm. What do you not like about it? And map a course so that you can change. And really, you just change one day at a time. And there will be ups and downs. So you take 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 3 steps forward, 3 steps back, 3 steps forward, 1 step back, 3 steps forward, another 3 steps forward. So really, it's not about instant change. It's not about instantly getting to where you want to be. It's that one step at a time with plenty of fails and falls along the way. But I love what Proverbs says, that though a righteous man falls 7 times, he rises again. And so getting back up where you are is not where you have to stay. Just because this happened doesn't mean you have to stay in that spot. Move forward. I love studying the lives of people like Robert Downey Jr., who it looked like their career was over, and then they become one of the top actors out there. Absolutely amazing.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. Where you are, it's not where you're going to end. You don't have to say that. I like that. That is great encouragement. Because a lot of times people are stuck in this space, especially if you're in an environment where who you are is not being cultivated to be the person that you can be. If you're in an environment where what you see is the normal, but what your vision is not the normality of it. Mm-hmm. Ooh, that can be tough. That can be tough. And I'm speaking from personal experience. I have been in situations where God has given me a vision and I've seen something, and I'm in an environment where I can't tell anybody else because they're going to think I'm crazy, or it's going to be like, oh no, that can't happen, or somebody else did that, or, there's no one there to cultivate what you've seen or cultivate that person that you're supposed to be. But God had to separate me. He pulled me completely out of the environment. And when I say separate, I was at home, work from home. At first it drove me crazy because I wanted to be outside. I wanted to do stuff. And it was like, nope, you got to be still. I would drive around in my car every day just to drive, just to see, just to be out, just to do something. And that's not what God wanted. He wanted me to be still. And when I finally gave in to being still, it was so many things that started to happen. I was getting calls about my business. The business, I thought I was going to just leave it to the wayside and be like, hey, it's over. Maybe I'll start again. Maybe. No, I was getting calls about teaching tax school. I was getting calls about developing a tax software, like out of nowhere. Then the podcast happened. I'm like, what? Like, just what? So that advice, that encouragement, I receive it for myself because that is absolutely true. Where you start is not where you're going to finish. And even though you may not be in an environment where you have the support or you have the people there that can cultivate what you saw, what God has shown you, be still. I would say be still. Be still and know that he is God. He will do it. I had to say that too. Okay, I just have one more question. No, it's actually two. For your book, Life on Purpose, how did you write that? Like, what was the pushing behind it, the forethought?
Yeah. So, I mean, a couple of different things. I mean, it's a short book. It's more of a workbook. It's only like 6,000 words versus a big book could be something like 50,000 words. So if you were just to read it as a book, but really it's an interactive book. And the thought behind it was, okay, I'm leading an organization that's talking about go on the mission. And I'm asking people to go on the mission. Now I'm asking people in a big sense, go on the mission. They can do it with us. We can do trips together. We can build schools together. You can sponsor kids. But if I'm saying go on the big mission, what is your specific role in that?
Right.
And so even starting this role, even before I started, I was working on it. And ultimately it's exercises and reflections that lead you to writing down what I call right here, a practical tool for crafting a God-honoring, joy-producing mission statement. So it's just exercises and a path for people to take where, yeah, there's some stuff that's written, but then there's a plenty of time where it's just, hey, let's reflect on that right here.
Yeah.
And so they can reflect on it and then ultimately a pathway for them to get it. If I want you to go on the big mission, what is your smaller mission in it? So really after I got hired in October, I started working on this and I spent about 2 months just kind of working on it, putting it together, and then published it through a little hybrid publisher, and ultimately so that people can get it and find it wherever they buy books so that they can have a chance to create it. And really, honestly, for me, it's more of a tool for them than a moneymaker. It's not a moneymaker at all. It's meant to be a gift that would add value to others because having a mission statement for me was so valuable.
Yes, I like that. One of my prayers is, God, please let me be a resource. That is one of my prayers. So I pray that often. I just want to be used, and I want everything that God gives me, I want to flow through me. I don't feel like everything he gives me, it's just for me to prosper. It's for other people to prosper as well. So I always pray to, please, God, let me be a resource. I love that you said it's not a moneymaker, it's a tool. I love that. A lot of times people don't understand how important resources and tools are. They're very, very, very important. Sometimes people feel like the value is just tell me what I need to do. The value is not telling you what you need to do. The value is you learning and evolving and growing for yourself. I can't just always tell you what you need to do because most of the time you don't listen anyway.
Right.
Okay. What are your hopes and goals for the organization in the next few years for Go on the Mission?
Yeah. So I'm just super excited because obviously if you look at what Jesus talks about, he says, the workers are few. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. And so I'm looking at the harvest of the world. In fact, I've been talking to someone in India today, and there's some opportunities in Mexico. There's so many opportunities out there to make a significant difference. And really then the harvest is few, and that's really the workers. And so one of my big goals is to dramatically expand the amount of people that we're serving and finding the people who are in need. So right now, for example, we have 450 kids sponsored. So that's 450 kids whose needs are met for. So we have lots of need, but really in 1 year, I'd love to see us double that amount because the harvest is plentiful.
Yes.
And so really right now, I've been looking for workers. And so we have 10 partner churches. And so even this year, I'm looking at growing it from 10 partner churches to 20 partner churches, going from 450 kids who are sponsored to 1,000 kids. And I know that's audacious for a 1 year goal, and we're already in March and going, let's go for it. But I really believe that God can do more than we ask or imagine.
Yes.
And so if you're listening to this and you're inclined to say, let's do something, our website is goonthemission.com and we can sponsor a kid. Or if you are connected to a church, let's connect to your church and get your church involved. When we partner together, whether we are a sender, whether we're a receiver, whether we're intermediary, it's amazing what happens. I mean, think about the life that happens with partnerships.
Yeah.
Think about the memories that happen. Often that time that we're all by ourselves, we don't remember. It's a time when we're with our kids, or we're with a friend, or with a family member. It's the memories that come here. So we're looking at creating partnerships. So that's really our vision. And we have some other metrics and different goals, but I don't think that's what you're asking. It's really that picture.
Yeah.
At the end of my life, I love this card. I love this card, Taishandra. I got this card when I was, I don't know, like 20 or so. And I was finishing out my internship. And someone got me this card. And it said something like, when you get to heaven someday. I was like 20 years old. I'm like, when I get to heaven? What are you saying to me? But, when do you get to heaven someday? Someone's going to come up to you and say, thank you so much. You don't even know me, but you made a big impact on me. And after you shake their hand and greet them and talk to them, another person's going to come up. And I always thought about that picture. Like, what would it be like to be in eternity, and we're going to be able to talk to all the different people that we impact and that impacted us.
Yes.
And we're going to be able to connect all the dots. And how cool would it be to have a long line of people that we've impacted that we didn't even know about?
That would be amazing. Oh my God. I get all giddy thinking about it. I always say, can I just get a well done? I strive for a well done. But then you think about it, all the people that you impact, because you don't know how you impact people.
Yeah.
You really don't. You really don't know. Sometimes God may allow you to see it in this life, but I like how you say when you get to heaven, you get that long line. Yeah. Yes. I would be so happy. I mean, I'm a goofball now, and my face hurts when I smile too much, so I can just imagine. I can just imagine. Oh my God. One more question. If you had to tell me what your purpose in life is now, what would it be?
Yeah, so I actually have a statement about that. Let me just reopen to page 90. Now I have the basics of this memorized. But so basically, I reach out to people, I teach people, I train people, I release people, and repeat it. And I do this to my family, and then I get back up. So those would be the 7 different things. Of course, in the book, I read the kind of expanded version of that. But that's my purpose. And it's interesting. There's overarching purposes and there's specific purposes. So when I worked for a large corporation, the large corporation had a vision and a mission and a purpose statement. The corporation was about providing high quality veterinary medical resources to all the veterinarians, something like that. However, not every single person had the specific purpose the same. Some, their specific purpose was to support the sales team. Some people were the people in the warehouse who were specifically loading it up and sending it. And so there's a general purpose, and then there's the specific purpose that is part of the overall purpose.
Yeah.
So God has an overarching purpose. Rick Warren wrote a book about the 5 different purposes. And we have these statements like to seek and save the lost. But what is your specific purpose in his overarching purpose? What is your job? What is your mission? That's mine. And if my book is helpful to you, and if I can be a resource to you, and this podcast is fantastic to encourage you to find your purpose, do so. Because knowing what you're about gives you direction and gives you joy.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Acker, for being here. Oh my God. You are such a light. I appreciate you. Thank you for your time and your story and your talents. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on your show, and keep up the good work of encouraging people to really hear what God says to them.
Thank you. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today on the Who God Says podcast with your host and Kingdom Ambassador, Taishandra. Go to whogodsays.com to join the mailing list for episode premieres, upcoming guests, and more. Send in your questions to be a part of the show at whogodsays@gmail.com. And don't forget, join the Kingdom Fanatic community. Until next time, be blessed and also be a blessing.